So if I was to ask you the question, what does Easter mean to you? Many of us probably would have different answers. Well, I could remember the first Easter, or I could remember the first time that we went to church, or the first Easter egg hunt we had, or the first dress or the first outfit that I had and dressed up, or how that we always would go back home and mom and dad's house, and they would always have a ham on Easter, right? That's the one thing that you would always have is on Easter you would have a ham. You didn't have rabbit. I don't know anybody that actually cooked rabbit for Easter. And so I kept wondering where the rabbit came from or whatever. But when you go back and you really think about the first Easter and what the first Easter was really like, because you see, it was Sunday, the first day of the week. And when you think about it, on that day, for those that were the disciples of Christ, to them, Saturday had come and they were really depressed. They were hurting. And to them, they had just finished up probably the worst week of their whole life that they had ever experienced. And so to see Sunday coming, it was like, really wasn't a day to rejoice. It was really hard. You see, because the enemies of Jesus and his followers, they thought that they had put this movement from this radical down. We killed their leaders. And surely now that they don't have a leader, they're just going to disappear and go away. All the troubles and everything that they've caused us, it's just not going to happen. We can just put it to rest and everything else is going to be over. It's going to be fine. You see, because this one that they called Jesus, his life was a total failure. You see, because the Jews were looking for the Messiah to come and to liberate them from underneath the rule of the Romans. And here it is that he has come and he has died. And the Jews are still slaves to Roman. So he just was just a blip on the radar screen and totally gone. You see, because this Jesus, his life was over. His voice was no longer going to be heard. As a matter of fact, we've got him in the grave. And we sealed his tomb to make sure. We've also posted some guards there to really make sure that nobody could come and mess with his grave. So we've put an end to all of this. His tongue has been silenced. And all of these miracles that he had performed, the healing of the blind, the leper, the raising of those, the lame man that he made walk, and the cripple, and all of those things, they're soon just going to fade into history. And we're all going to come back. You see, because on that Saturday, the only activity that was going on wasn't by the disciples or by Jesus' followers. As a matter of fact, the only activity that was going on that Saturday was actually in Matthew chapter 27, verses 62 through 66, and we'll have them on here. And you have to understand that The Roman government was no longer concerned with the disciples of Jesus. Here's what it says in verse number 62. It said, the next day, which followed the preparation day, okay, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate. They're holding their council. Here's what they're doing. And they said, sir, we remember that while this deceiver was still alive, he said, after 3 days. He didn't say on the third day. Okay? There's a lot of people that say he did on the third day. He says, after 3 days, I will rise again. So give orders that the tomb be made secure until the third day. Otherwise, his disciples may come, steal him, and tell the people, he has been raised from the dead, and the last deception will be worse than the first. So take guards, Pilate told them. Go and make it as secure as you know how. Make sure nobody gets into that grave. 66, they went and secured the tomb by setting a seal on the stone and placing the guards. So when you begin to look at this and you see what was going on, the Romans, they weren't concerned about anything but these pesky disciples. You see, because if we don't secure his grave, then what they're going to do is they're going to go in there and they're going to steal his body and take it away somewhere. And when everybody comes to his grave after that, they're going to see the tomb is empty, and they're going to say that, oh yes, he told the truth, that he was going to rise again. But those pesky disciples are the ones that's going to steal his body. So we've got to make sure that this doesn't happen. That's all they were concerned about. They weren't concerned about Jesus rising from the dead. They didn't believe it. Really? We've never seen this before. Oh, but they had. I think, wasn't there a guy in the Bible by the name of Lazarus who had died? And I think Jesus went to his grave and gave the command to unbind him. And then he stood outside of his grave and said, Lazarus, come forth. And I remember I was playing in a play one day, and I was playing Lazarus. I was the only Lazarus that ever came forth with a Timex on. I don't think we're coming forth with a watch. We don't need to tell time. Oh yes, and he had glasses too. It was amazing the miracles that they had back then, you know. They had already developed a lot of things. But you think about it for a minute. Yeah, somebody had already risen from the dead. But they didn't think that Jesus was capable of this. So they just put him there. You see, in reality, think about it for a minute. Why were they concerned about the disciples stealing his body? The disciples were in meltdown mode. They went back and hid in the city. They were afraid to be caught out on the streets, because if they were caught out on the streets, they would possibly get them, jail them, or even more, also crucify them on the cross. They were scared. They were afraid. They were behind locked doors. You see, for them, they were afraid that maybe there might be a cross that had their name on it. They didn't know what was going to occur. You see, because yesterday was Saturday. And to them, Saturday held no hope. None whatsoever. You think about it. The Bible really doesn't ever record us hearing a conversation between any of the disciples saying, hey, Peter, you're the one that's always speaking up. So when we see Jesus tomorrow, what are you going to say to him? Hey, John, James, you're the sons of thunder. What are you going to do when Jesus shows up? We don't see them having these conversations because he's dead. He's gone. What are we going to do now? We don't have homes. Everything that we had with us. And he was our leader. When we got hungry, he fed us. He always knew what to say. He always knew how to make situations better. When we needed a pick-me-up, he was there to do that. But he's no longer here. Now what are we going to do? I don't read any conversations like, when we saw Jesus last, we didn't even recognize him. He didn't even look human. He was beaten and scarred. The skin was ripped open. The muscles, the tendons, they were slashed. His beard had been plucked. He didn't look anything like he did when we traveled with him. So I wonder what he's going to look like when he comes out of the grave tomorrow. I wonder what we're going to see. I don't see any of those conversations that they had in the Bible. And surely, out of all of the people that were there in the upper room, surely one of them must have said, hey, hold on, guys. Hold on, people. Don't you remember he told us something? He told us after 3 days, he's going to rise again. And by the way, hasn't he always done what he told us he was going to do? Do you, hey, James, John, Peter, Nathaniel, do you, any of you guys, do any of you guys remember him ever telling us anything that he never did? It's like they forgot. And then Saturday and Sunday's coming. And this is going to be after the third day, so what's it going to look like? In Mark chapter 9 and verse number 31, it tells us that the Son of Man is going to be betrayed into the hands of men, and they were going to kill him. But he would rise again after the third day. They forgot that part of the saying. And don't you think that maybe somebody had been to school and had passed math? That they could have said, well, it's been 1, 2, 3 days. Surely we're going to see him today because he promised us he would. But nobody, if you think about it, nobody there connected the dots yet. They were all there. For them, Saturday had no hope, and so now comes Sunday. And so what were they going to do? The Bible is very plain. They were going to do their type of embalming. They hadn't got a chance to do this yet, and so they're going back to give him a proper burial. That's what they expected to see. And so They were coming to embalm him, not to talk to him. But look at what Mark chapter 16, verses 1 to 3 says. It says, when the Sabbath was over, okay, the Sabbath is over at 6 o'clock in the morning. That was the finishing of night. So right after 6 o'clock, which some renditions will say very early in the morning. I don't know about y'all, but 6 o'clock is very early in the morning. Okay? Some of us were here at 5:30. It is very early in the morning. I got up at 4 o'clock to let the dog out. The birds weren't even chirping. That's early. There wasn't anything moving, in the neighborhood. So when the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so that they could go and anoint him. Next verse. Very early in the morning, on the first day of the week, they went to the tomb at sunrise, which is 6 o'clock in the Jewish. And they were saying to one another, we forgot something. Remember when we put him in the grave? We rolled a stone. We're a bunch of women. It took more than 3 women to roll this stone in front of the tomb. There actually was some more women. But I don't think we're going to be able to roll it away. So they asked this question. Who will roll away the stone from the entrance to the tomb for us? Do you remember when you were kids growing up, how they, and even some places today still do, remember how they used to have Easter parades on Easter? Everybody's dressed up. The kids are all lined up on the streets. They're just pitching candy every which direction and all this stuff. And everybody, man, it's Easter, it's Easter. Oh, wow, great, wonderful. This is not the type of parade that Mary and Salome and Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of Jesus and Salome. This is not the type of parade they were having. They were depressed. They were sad. He had died. And now they're going to anoint him. You see, because here's what happens in our lives. It may be Sunday morning, but we seem to be stuck in a hopelessness of Saturday. Everything's happening. Everything's gone wrong. And we get stuck at that moment. And we never see the Sunday morning that's coming. Or the Sunday morning that's here. Ask yourself this question. Have you ever been stuck on Saturday? Where you just can't get out of that depression? Because everything seems to be going wrong. It doesn't matter that the calendar has flipped from Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday to Thursday. It just seems like you're in this cycle that every day is just the same. And tomorrow when you get up, you wonder what's going to happen today. Because yesterday something happened to me, and the day before something happened to me, and the day before that something happened to me. And so when I get up this morning, I'm expecting for something bad to happen to me. And my pattern of life is just stuck there. This is the way they were. They were stuck on this Saturday. But God had something for them to see, to open up, and be able to say, hold on a minute. You've got to understand that every day is not a rainy day, ladies and gentlemen. Every day is not a day where the sky is gray. God's trying to tell you that there are days where there are blue skies. And Sunday is coming. And we need to understand that, remember the old saying, there's a silver lining on every cloud? I wonder what clouds they've been looking at. Because there's some dark clouds that I've seen out there lately, and I haven't seen any silver on them at all. But you're stuck with life where there's no more hope. There's no more courage. There's really no reason to be positive. You ever ran into people like that? I mean, you could talk to them and they could have everything, and they would think that they have nothing. They're still looking for something. But you see, it's like when you put your trust or your hope in something or in someone, they let you down. Or worse yet, they die. And then your whole life and your whole hope was built in them. You see, death seems to be the ultimate insult. It's like you do the best you can. You pay your dues to the world and you do your best to make a difference in the lives of those around you. You try to be healthy. You try to eat right. You try to exercise. You try to follow all of the rules. But can I tell you something? Nobody outlives death. It doesn't matter. You see, because in the end, we're all going to die. It doesn't matter if you're the wealthiest person in the world or the person in the world that is the poorest. You're still going to die. There was a guy that seemed to be on the top of the world. He was called the King. I believe he was only 51 when Elvis died. In his 40s? Okay. The way he lived, it should have been 60. But Elvis died. A young lady who thought she had got her dream to marry the one who was going to be the King of England. And Princess Diana died at an early age. Martin Luther King Jr., who was making a huge impact on the world and bringing people together, he died at an early age. You see, they all do. And sometimes we forget that there's something that just sucks the life out of us and gets us stuck in this Saturday. And can I say this to you? If you don't have an answer to the grave, you're stuck on Saturday. If that's all you got in life is just, I'm going to die, then you're stuck. There is no hope. There's something, we got to know there's something besides dying. This isn't the end of it all. There's got to be something that is there. And you see something? This is why we love Easter. Because Easter tells us that death is not the end. Easter is the one day. In reality, can I tell you something? We celebrate it every day, reality. Because it's every day that we remember that Lord and our Savior, yes, He died, but He rose again. He is alive. And because He is alive, we have hope. That we're not stuck on Saturday. That there's coming a Sunday. And I'm looking for that Sunday to come. For the hope that is there. You see, for everybody that ever lives, Easter gives us a hope that our life is not a dead end. That there's something else to this. What Jesus does, ladies and gentlemen, is moves us from the Saturday mentality to a Sunday day of thinking, to understand what's there. Now, in John chapter 20, in verse 11, is really one of the greatest stories about Easter. It's about a woman. Not about the disciples, about a woman. In John chapter 20, in verse number 11, this is Mary Magdalene. Not Mary, the mother of Jesus. This was Mary Magdalene. But Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she was crying, she stooped to look into the tomb. Now think about this for a minute. They were on their way to the grave, and they were asking the question, who's going to roll away the stone? When they get there, the stone's rolled away, and what did they do? I wonder who did that. No, Mary stoops down and looks in the grave. Okay? In verse number 11. Verse number 12. She saw two angels in white sitting where Jesus' body had been lying. One at the head, the other at the feet. They said to her, "Woman, why are you crying?" Their next verse? Or is that it? That was it. Okay. So, woman, why are you crying? I didn't put it up there, but she responded with, "They have taken my Lord away, and I don't know where they've put him." She's talking to these two guys. Jesus is gone. And she's saying, "Hold on a minute. I'm looking. Where have you taken him? Where have you put him? I came here." You want to know what was going on here? Mary had buried more than a friend. There are some people in our lives that affect us more than others when they die. They may not be a brother, a sister, a mom, or a dad. Most of the time you expect that, right? But a friend. But Jesus was more than a friend to Mary. You see, Jesus was the only person who had ever helped her. Nobody else had. You see, we don't know a whole lot about her, and there was probably a whole lot of speculations because in Mark chapter 16 now, in verse 9, look at what it says. Early on the first day of the week, Sunday, okay? Because in the Jewish calendar, Sunday was the first day, Saturday was the Sabbath, the seventh day, okay? Early on the first day of the week, after what? After he? Who's the he? Who's the he? Who's the he? There you go. Some of you are waking up. Now, this is getting cool. He appeared first to Mary Magdalene, after whom he had driven 7 demons. The number 7 always meant completeness. So can I tell you this? She was completely possessed. All of her life, up to the point where she met Jesus, she was totally possessed. It doesn't tell us what she was possessed with. But can I tell you something? For those of you that are suffering with depression, back during this time, you were demon possessed. Depression, anxiety was a demonic, it was a demon. If you had epilepsy, that was a demon. They didn't know anything except you were different. You didn't act like everybody else, so you were possessed. And remember what they did with people who were possessed? Huh? They disowned them or killed them. They burned them. In this country, in the 1600s, they were burning people that they thought were witches. Think about this. Here's a lady. The Bible doesn't tell us what demons that she had. But what if she had depression and anxiety? And nobody would get around her. Nobody wanted to be around her at all. And then all of a sudden, one day, she meets this guy called Jesus. And Jesus doesn't just get rid of one demon. He got rid of all of them. And so now, he's more than just a friend. He's the only one that had ever treated her like a human being. There's a whole lot of speculation about Mary Magdalene and Jesus and all kinds of stuff that people want to say. It's garbage, don't even go there. Because let me say this to you. Mary could have also had a dependency. That was, in this time, demon possession. You think about it. Man, a bunch of us we'd be in trouble. We would all be isolated and not allowed to be these things. You see, because everybody avoided her. But when she came to the tomb and she found the body gone, the stone rolled away, it never occurred to her that Jesus was doing what he said. He was following through. And Jesus told her what they were going to do. But I think she missed that miracle. They're all missing it. This thing that's going to happen. And may I say this to you, that I think we all get to that point in our life when we feel that life has just so overwhelmed us and we seem to be stuck that we don't see what Jesus is doing for us. How he's getting us unstuck. It's like the old saying, misery loves company. It is like we've been there for so long, we just stuck there. And we're just going to stay there until we die. There's just no hope for anything to go on. So later on, give me the next verse. In John chapter 20, it says, having said this, where she asked, where have you taken him? Where did you take his body? Having said this, she turned around and she saw Jesus standing there. But she did not know who it was. Now, she's only the first one that's seeing him, and she didn't know who he was, but please remember that the others who saw Jesus later didn't know who he was either. There was something totally different about Jesus when he arose than when he went in the grave. Can I tell y'all something? A little secret? When you arise, you ain't going to look the way you do right now. There's going to be something different about you. Okay? And some people are saying, praise the Lord. I spend 3 hours in the morning trying to look different than I am. And Jesus is going to do it instantaneously. And it's not going to cost me anything. And I saw Jesus standing there, but she did not know who it was. Look at what he said. Woman, Jesus said to her, he says, why are you crying? Who is it that you're seeking? Who are you looking for here? Jesus said to her, Mary. She may not have recognized who it was, but as soon as he said her name, turning around, she said to him in Aramaic, Rabboni, which means rabbi or teacher. She may not have recognized him, but as soon as she heard that voice, she knew exactly who it was. Let me say this to you, that one of these days, Jesus is coming back. And when he does, he is going to say, my children, come forth. The Bible says my children know my name and they will follow no other. Let me tell you this, a little secret. If you're a child of God and when Jesus comes back with a voice of the archangel and just says, arise, we're going to be Lazarus out of here. We're coming out of the grave. And I hear people say all the time, all the Christians are just going to disappear out of here, and everybody's going to wake up tomorrow and wonder where in the world the Christians have gone. Now, I don't know who you got that story from, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Wherever I'm at and whatever I'm doing, when Jesus comes and he says, come on, I am going to be a Pentecostal, Baptist, Masonic, whatever. I will have learned how to have happy feet to dance. I will be a white guy with rhythm. And I will never shut up. I will be shouting from out all the way out of here. Woo! Yes! Bye-bye, world. I'm gone. See you later. And I'm not going to be the only one. Some of you people that sit in here on Sundays so quiet and so peaceful and can't say a word. It's like, I just can't wait till we get done here. We're going to look around and say, is that you? I didn't know you could even talk. That's the first time I've heard your voice. But I know who you were, You were the one that sat back there so quiet. And everybody thought, oh, that person is just so meek. And I'm looking in there, they got a louder voice than me. And I'm thinking, that's impossible. But God does the impossible. But one of the things that he says, woman, why are you crying? You see something here? Even when Jesus got up out of the grave, he still hadn't given up on Mary. He's standing there, no longer dead but alive. And Mary is crying. And Jesus, in only the way that Jesus could with his compassion, he didn't say, well, I'm out of here. You're on your own now. Good luck. He turns around and says, why are you crying? Why are you hurting, Mary? Can I say this to you as sincere as I can? When you're hurting and you think that nobody else cares, Jesus will always care. He will never stop caring. When you hurt, he's feeling for you because that's his love. And he asked her, he says, why are you crying? Most of us would think, well, look, there's angels sitting there talking to you. The tomb is empty, duh. Wouldn't you cry too? Well, I don't know what's going on here. You see, Jesus is looking at Mary, and the empty tomb didn't open her eyes. The angels didn't open her eyes. So Jesus takes matters into his own hands. He says, I got it. I got it. Watch this. And he does this. You see, in the book of Micah, it tells us, it says that he asks this question about God. He says, where is another God like you who pardons the sins of survivors among his people? You cannot stay angry with your people forever because you delight in showing mercy. Once again, you will have compassion on us. Do you understand that Jesus has compassion on you? And that's what he's trying to tell us. That when you hit the valley, a lot of times people think when you hit the valley that God must really be mad at me because I'm stuck here in this and it doesn't go there. You see, because he's not. In Psalms chapter 30, in verse number 5, you know this verse. It says, weeping may go on all night, but joy comes in the morning. And this is what Jesus was trying to tell them. You may have been crying all night, but now it's morning, and guess what? I'm alive. The joy that you're looking for, I'm here. All of the things that you were concerned about, all of the things that was happening, I'm here. You see, in Mary, when she said, they've taken my Lord away, and she's relating because whenever there was a bad time for Mary, Jesus was there. Whenever she was hurting, Jesus was always there. And how's she going to survive when he's gone? I don't know where he's at. They've taken him away. He's no longer, his body's not there. I have no idea where he's at. Jesus says, I'm right here. I'm right here. Nobody's moved me. Nobody's taken me away. But the Bible goes on and he tells us, that says, thinking that he was the gardener, she said, Sir, if you've carried him away, tell me where you've put him, and I will get him. Could she have really? No. But do you understand how much her devotion to him was? She wanted to make sure that he had a proper burial. That's what she wanted to do. That more than anything was the last thing that she could do to him, to serve him, was to make sure he had a proper burial. And it didn't matter, no matter what anybody was throwing at her, no matter all the obstacles that were being put in her way, she thought, I'm still got to do this. That was her devotion to Jesus. My question to you, Christian, is this. What is your devotion to Christian like, or to Christ like? Is our devotion to serve him no matter what? When things get rough, we give up. We want to quit. I thought it was going to be easier than this. Let me tell you something. Whoever told you that a Christian life was going to be easy was a liar. Because a Christian life is not easy. It is one of the hardest, it is the hardest life to live. Living the life of a lost person or sinner is easy. You just do what you want. But living as a Christian, you can't do what you want. You live the way that God wants you to. That's what you try. And it's hard. Because Satan is going to hit you from every corner. When Jesus said that each and every one of us have to bury our cross, he means we've got to die. We have to die. But can I tell you something? Saturday's over. Sunday morning's coming. And it's life that he's giving us. When Mary saw this, or heard Jesus call her name, she knew who he was. Like I said, whenever Jesus calls our name, we're going to know who he is. It's not going to be any doubt whatsoever. And can I tell you this? Your heavenly Father, your heavenly King, your heavenly Daddy, he knows your name. And he's going to call you by name. The name that he's given you, he's going to call you by that. You see, God doesn't just see humanity as one big sea of bodies. Can I say this to you? God sees each and every one of you individually. Everyone. I may forget your name, but I'm going to give you this. God never will. If you're his child, he's got it etched. And he knows who you are. You see, it may be that you've got your planner And your planner can be Outlook or Google or whatever. It could be your calendar on the wall. And that calendar on the wall, that calendar on your phone or whatever, can be stuck on Saturday. And you keep waiting to turn the page to Sunday. Can I tell you this? That page has already been turned about 2,000 years ago, when Jesus gave his life on the cross. It's already Sunday. This is why we call this Resurrection Sunday. Because why? To most people, here's what happens. Remember, they talk about that life is like a roadway, and you're traveling down this road. And then all of a sudden, when you're at the end of this life, what you see in front of you is a dead end. But God says, hold on a minute. Right before you get to that dead end, I've got an exit for you. And can I tell you something? This exit that I've got for you is a place that's someplace not even on the map. It's a place where a lot of people just dream about. They dream about how beautiful it is and how great and wonderful it's going to be, but they've never really visited it there. They've only thought about it and really just imagine. And here's what he says. I've got you covered. Because instead of a dead end to your life, I've got an exit that you can take. That's just going to be the beginning of your travels. And that's what he wants to offer you this morning. He wants to offer you a way out. When you look at your life, what do you see? What have I accomplished? I got a good job, or I got a mediocre job. I get by. You know, I do the best I can. I try my best to be nice to everybody, but I really struggle. I really don't think that I've really impacted anybody's life. At the end of the day, if they have my funeral, who's going to come? Will there be a few people there, or will there be nobody? Just me and the funeral director. Is that your concern? You see, because you can make a bigger impact on people than you think by just telling them that there's someone that really cares about them. He really does. When you hurt, he cares. He cares. And he doesn't desert you. He stays there with you. It may not seem like it, but that's because Satan wants to make sure that you don't think that he does. He gives you your next breath, but he also takes the next breath from you. And someday he will. So this morning, you can go get dressed. So this morning I ask you, what are you going to do?